Hey, good morning. Vic here for thepracticalprepper.com. We're going to get a swale update put together here. This is beginning of September. I think it's about the 6th. Football just started, and it's Friday. I think it's Friday the 6th. I'm going to do a little update on where things are at. We've been busy with so many other projects, but let me get you a swale update. And here it's, basically a common thistle. But what's interesting, if you look at things overall, this is an area right here in front of me. If you kind of look around, it was absolutely thick with the thistle. Now I've hand cut a bunch of it out of here. It's really not that hard to get out. Did this in probably an hour and a half, got it all cleared. So a little bit of it's come back. But if you look right next to it, look at all this grass. And guess what isn't growing over there? Thistle. So part of the eradication plan of thistle, which will take considerable time and patience, is to continue to reseed with our native grasses that we have here. As you can see, it's all the way from the end of this toe swale, kind of all the way across here. And then only when that grass stops, bingo, there's a little bit of thistle. So our plan is to seed in. I've started seeding kind of more on the high side over here. So this is an area below the toe swale. You see the grass, and then you'll see there's a little piece of thistle there. There's a little one here. There's a little one there. And then the grass kind of stops, and now the thistle takes over. So the plan is to keep stretching our grass all the way across the top here in between the swales and in this area, and hopefully over time by taking out the thistle before it goes seed, adding back in our native grass seed, will eventually push the thistle out, and this will eventually be nothing but grass in here. Because the water does come downhill, holds on the swale, and then it flows from this swale down to the next cut into that swale and then down the hill. And it's really interesting to watch some of this area change, and for the good, in the direction we want. So what's happening, let me go over a couple hard items that we've done. So this is the toe swale. This is the rock spillway. I think I added this in a little video before, but what I want to show you is I scratched in native grass below it. And as you can see, what you see coming up there is all our native that I planted. It's right along the swale, and it's coming up between the rocks. And what it's going to do is, if there's any other seed down there, it will start pushing it out, but it will create a much better, a much more solid spillway with basically more of a rock mulch spillway. So that's come real well. So let me take you down. Let me take you down to the next spillways, which I have completed. Now this is a little issue. And those of you in the area know what that is. And I've been pretty successful, I think, at keeping a lot of the deer out of here. And it's been by several means. So this is main spillway. So there you look at the north end of the main spillway. Come back around. So here is the rest of the spillway to the south, main spillway. So here is the next rock spillway. And all this rock I've imported from the property. None of it's come from any outside source. So it's all native. It kind of matches everything. It's just the best that I could hope for. And it's just taken some work. I've had to go, I'll show you. You see uphill, there's the house. But you see, we own up that hill and over the top of that mountain. And what I've had to do is to take the tractor and kind of drive it up, well, kind of up in this area right up in here, drive it up in that area and stop, and then I'll harvest rock around it, and then I'll move the tractor over and I'll fill up the bucket, come on back down. So again, I've seeded this top area, this overflow on top, with some grass seed, and then I've done it here as well, and as you can see, it's starting to come up. And I'm starting to get some grass seed to come up in around this one. And so this will end up being another rock mulch spillway. And of course, here's our dreaded thistle. I'll probably come back here, and what I'm basically trying to do is to cut about 6 to 8, 10 feet from the end of the swale out and keep that area in front clear of thistle, and then throwing it down the hill. I want to get this area dealt with by pushing thistle out first, and then we'll deal with the rest. So now we'll come across, go north. The very north end of the main spillway was the last, third and final spillway from the main swale. And this was actually the largest one. It's extremely wide, and part of the reason we did that, if you can see if I can show you here, there's a yellow flag there, and there's one over to the left. And what that means is, if you go back to a previous video that I did of the layout, you'll see where there's a rock mulch rundown that comes from the upper road, or my drive, comes down the hill and goes into the spillway just to my left. And that's designed to take sheet runoff that's coming down and doing damage to the road, moving it into a gully, a rock, basically a rock gully, that'll move the water over and then let it flow down slower down the rock mulch and into the spillway without causing damage. And I have not had a chance to get up there and do that. Got too many projects and not enough time. I'll talk about some of the other things I've been doing that I've kind of prioritized ahead of it, because I'm one guy with 2 hands and 2 legs. So anyway, this one's all done. It's all hand placed, and I've also added seed, grass seed in here, but it hasn't had time to germinate yet. But I'm set for the winter and some rain here. I'll be able to control it without having as much of the erosion. So the other thing that I'll show you is that along our roadway, you take a look at this now, I had not finished doing the rock embankment on each side. And you can see my 2 culvert pipes. This was the roadway, and it was basically sloughing off. So, you know, back about 3 or 4 feet, the soil was tapering off, and the drains were completely exposed on both sides. So what I did was I brought rock back in, and I basically built a little rock edging bridge on both sides, which will, one, help protect the culvert pipe and keep the roadway soil in place. Did the same on this side. This side was a little taller. And this is the other face. Again, all the rock brought in from the property. I just have to go hunt around it. But they call it red rock for a reason, and that's that color of that rock. And I think it works so well with a landscape. You know, if I were a landscape planner, this is what I'd do. So it worked out really well, and we're real happy with it. So a couple of the things that I've done, that's pretty much hardscape. But if you look, this is the main swale north end. You see those 2 3/4 inch lines. That is zone 1 and zone 2. So again, if you go back and look at the layout video, you'll see that this north end on both sides of the roadway is zone 2. One of these guys actually goes in the culvert pipe and it runs all the way down to do zone 1, which is all the way at the south end of the main swale. So what I've done is I had some 4-inch perforated drain line, and in order to protect these guys, what I did was I ran them both inside. These can be crushed, they can kink, so by doing this in nice flowing lines and putting them inside of this piping, I'm giving them a secondary shell which will protect them from being crushed. And where this was kind of laying around here in a big huge loop that went back up to the valves, it now simply goes from here to there underground, and now I can drive my tractor back in here and do some other work. We're pretty close to doing all this grass, coming in and thrashing this grass, and then doing kind of a mock animal, which would be spreading it and grinding it into the soil. Normally if you had some grazing animals, they would knock it down, tromp it over, push it in the soil, and voila, you've got grass coming up. So here's the other end. So it's underground, and that's where it comes up. Goes right up to valve 1 and 2 on the left, zone 1 and 2. Then the other side, you can see 3 and 4 come off. It goes into a column. It goes into a conduit, so to speak. It goes up the hill and picks up 3 and 4. Zones 3 and 4. So now I can move around. It'll protect from deterioration, and if I ever need to replace one, I can just pull one in and pull one out. Very convenient. When I did the trenching up at the Gardanimal area, I just ran the trencher down here and did this at the same time. This soil is so easy to dig in, it's not even funny. In fact, it's so loamy that the drive wheels on the trencher itself wouldn't dig in. It was so fine they'd just spin. So anyway, that accomplished. We've really taken care of, at the swales and the spillways, we've taken care of erosion. We've got seed planted. The only other thing I have to do is down at the rolling dip. I need to do some work on that and get some rock in there and recut it with the tractor. What happened was a big rain sloughed off a lot of real fine soils down in there, and I need to go reestablish the pattern in the slope again. And then I'll get a bunch of native rock, and I'll drop a bunch of native smaller rock, like 6-inch rock and smaller, and kind of help with the erosion down there. So I think that's it. I think I'll mount up here and then we'll do some seed stuff. Okay, so here's something else that we're doing. Is this time of year we've got a lot of the plants that are cover crops that are drying up. A lot of our peas are drying up and getting ready to start dropping their seed. There's quite a bit of orech. Let me see what we've got. What I've done is I've started some buckets here for seed. So these are pea pods, as you can see. So as they're finished up, we'll just crack the pods open, and there's our seed for next year. So we'll be putting a lot of that together. This bucket right here, which is looks a lot finer, this is daikon radish. And if you haven't had daikon, it's pretty good. Now here's a lot of their pods. And what we'll do is we'll just come through and just bust the pods off. And then we'll throw, now we're going to let these dry real well, but what we're going to do is this stuff will get pitched over, and it'll simply become plant matter for the soil. So I'll show you one here. There's just a ton of this, but all you really have to do with this is kind of crush it in your hands. You can see the wind is just literally winnowing the chaff away. And right there we end up with seed. That seed for daikon. We can broadcast that. We can do that for next year. So what we'll do is we'll continue to collect in this bucket, and a lot of what we'll do is we just kind of do it that way. We just mash it up to start. It allows us to get kind of the twigs out, which we don't want, and we start mashing it. And I can kind of, it's a little hard to see. What we'll do is we'll get a series of screens, and we'll sift this through the different screens until we get down and we've got nothing left but seed. This gives us a pretty big jump, and there's so much of it. You know, I can just reach behind me here and start tossing it in. Let's see, I think I've got some pea right here. Yep. And here's some pea. You can kind of see it's in the stages of drying. And here's the hulls. So just make sure the pods get put in there. If you look at this one, let me get close enough. You can see this one is doing what it naturally does. It's splitting. It's going to drop its seed. So I will make sure it drops it where I want it. Good. And then this is simply broadcast back over into the swale for organic matter. So we've got these two. The other things we're going to have is a couple different types of orach, which we will keep. I need more orach seed to start it. What I'm really interested in is a lot of this stuff, our prevailing wind is pretty much this direction. So if you take this whole swale, the question is, and we'll find out in the spring, how much of this seed has gotten into the area we're standing in right now, and suddenly we have this starting to grow below the swale. So it should be interesting, and we'll see how that works out. I'll show you a couple of different plants. We've got orach. It's right here. It's not quite ready. It hasn't dried up enough. Let's take a look here. This is pea, but I'm not seeing the pods. There's one. There's one right here. So there's a pod. At this point, they're, too far in the season. They're going to be woody and not very edible. There's another pod. So I've got a couple of them now. And, if they're not quite dried out, we'll throw them in a bucket. We'll put them in trays in the garage and be ready. So here's more orach. More of it here. So what's interesting is it's very late and the clover's really coming in right now. I think that's part of what's bringing the deer in. There's another dropping area. I pretty much chased them. I've used a slingshot. That had some moderate effects. I have some cover smell that I could use. I just haven't been ready to use it. I need to make sure I'm completely done in the swales. I really don't want to mix it, and I've got to wait for the wind to die down. And that hasn't happened yet. This is one of our first days with very little wind. Hence I'm getting out here and doing the video. So you can see we've definitely got vigorous bee action. There's absolutely no shortage of bees out here. We've got a lot of good bugs, ladybugs. And then here you can see this right here. This is the kind of damage the deer do. This is blackberry right here. You can see she's coming along really nice. It won't be long till that really starts vining out. And what I've been doing, I've been on a program of tagging all of them. So this is a Natchez blackberry. I've been doing this to all my plants. It's easier to tell which ones are which, and I've got about 4 different types of berries in here between blackberries and raspberries. And so I don't know how well I'm going to be able to tell you which one's which later on without a scorecard. So this is again Thistle. You know, it's a constant fight. You go through and you find one in the swale and you get it out and go on to the next thing. Yeah, here's a lot of pea. Here's a lot of pea pods. These have opened. These have already opened. These haven't yet. So these are very dry. So I'm going to come through and harvest all of this pea out of here rather quickly. I have a lot of daikon radish, so I'm having a lot of that, so I'm really, you can kind of see it here, I'll show you. Look at this pile right here. That's all daikon seed pods. So I could throw that in my bucket and I'd have tons of seed in there. I think I'll just save that, that'll be easy. But that has fallen off, and there's a ton of seed in there that's going to go right in the ground, and guess what happens next spring? Here it comes again. So honestly, I'm taking a drop in the bucket, but I would like to try and transplant this to another area, so hence I want a lot of seed. So that's kind of our seeding right now. The other thing we're waiting on is the sunflowers. They're drying up, and it won't be long till we can start getting sunflower seeds out of them. There's 3 heads here. They're doing pretty well. I've also started, if you see them, I've put a lot of white posts in. This gets so overgrown that you lose the smaller plants that are growing at a much smaller rate than a lot of your other stuff. So it's going to be a good idea if you're doing it. Do it. Get some posts in. It'll be easier for you to find everything. You know, in the snow, when it dies down, you know, your trees are going to be standing there. It's going to be pretty obvious, but the little stuff, not so much. Yeah, see, here's Thistle. It kind of gets started. It doesn't take long, but then we have to come through and continue to get it out of here. And that's just what we do. And this is just, for me, this is going to be an uphill battle until I can get enough native grass to start really pushing it out to where it becomes less and less of a pain in my butt. But I think it'll happen. So that's it from the swale. Oh, Rusty the Wonder Dog. Come here. Say hi to everybody. Yep, good pup. She's working out really well. Don't get in the buckets. Okay, well that's the swale update for the moment. I'll have more. I'll definitely do one when we start winterizing and shutting down all the water and irrigation. But we've got, we've got another month and a half before I have to really start thinking about that. But definitely before my elk trip in November. So that's it for now from the homestead. Vic for thepracticalprepper.com. Later.